The Nimitz encounter is interesting because you have a few different ways in which the Tic Tac shaped objects were encountered. First, they were observed by Senior Chief Kevin Day, who was a radar operator on the USS Princeton in the Nimitz carrier group. They were located off the coast of Southern California at the time. And Kevin Day had been observing these objects on radar for around 2 weeks. They would drop in, they would appear on his radar at about 80,000 feet, drop down to about 28,000 feet, and then they would cruise south along the coast at a very slow speed, around 100 knots or so 120 miles an hour, something like this, which at 28,000 feet, there's not that much air, so an airplane can't fly at 100 miles an hour at that altitude. You fall out of the sky. So the speeds of these objects were way too slow, and that really bothered Kevin Day. He thought, these aren't just airplanes, these are strange things. And there were times when they would drop from the 28,000 feet height to sea level, would do so in about 0.78 seconds. So it would take 3/4 of a second for it to go from 28,000 feet to sea level. That's about 5 miles of height.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
3/4 of a second. That's shocking. That acceleration is about 5,600 Gs. That's 5,000 times the acceleration of gravity.
Goodness.
People aren't going to survive this. People can't survive more than about 11 Gs for anything over a few milliseconds. Our equipment can't survive this. An F-35 fighter will have its wings ripped off at about 13.5 Gs. Missiles can survive a bit higher accelerations. They can maneuver up to about 30 Gs, and the airframes can handle maybe 60 Gs, but that's it.
What does that tell you about the mass of these objects?
That it's not clear at all what's going on. You aren't going to be able to accelerate a physical object at those rates in the conventional sense, because you're just going to break all the equipment inside. You'll be destroying the craft. Given what was observed, this is clearly anomalous. We don't have an explanation for what's going on. If you're going to accelerate halfway and then decelerate, that means at the midpoint, you're going to be moving at your highest speed. And you can estimate what that speed is. And that turns out to be about 45,000 miles an hour. Our orbiting spacecraft, the space station orbits at about 17,000 miles an hour. So when the space shuttles would come in, or Apollo would come back in, after a trip to the moon, you're coming in around 17,000 miles an hour. And you're a fireball.
Right. Burning up. Yeah.
Fireball. Sonic booms, fireballs, the whole works, all the histrionics of the interactions with the air. The Tic Tacs weren't doing anything like this. There were no fireballs. There's no sonic booms. Nothing. And then as a physicist, you worry about other things. Where does all this energy come from? How much power did it take to do this? Where did the energy go when it stopped? It's going 45,000 miles an hour at the midpoint, which, by the way, is the speed of the New Horizons probe that passed Pluto in 2015. That's moving 45,000 miles an hour. That's how fast the Tic Tacs were going, which is shocking. But where does that energy go? That energy had to go somewhere. The Tic Tacs were estimated to be the size of an F-18. The power it would have taken to make that maneuver was something like 1,300 gigawatts of power. That's way more than the nuclear power output of the United States.
What?
Yes. In the little Tic Tac the size of an F-18. Doesn't make any sense. How much energy got released when it stopped? That would have been about 250 Tomahawk cruise missiles going off at once. That should have been dissipated somewhere. The energy has to go somewhere. Wasn't observed, right?
Yeah, and we're seeing none of that.
We're seeing none of that. So these things are anomalous in many, many ways. The speeds and accelerations are anomalous. The lack of interacting with the air is anomalous. There's no sonic booms, no fireballs. The energy just seemed to disappear. seem to appear and disappear. We don't know where the energy is coming from or going. These things are really anomalous. This is not normal anything going on here. So the question is, are they spacecraft? Well, I've already mentioned that they move, at least in that example, was moving as fast as the New Horizons probe. But at thousands of Gs of acceleration, you can get to extremely high speeds pretty quickly if you can keep that up, right? So in the case of the Nimitz encounter, it would have only been accelerating for 3/8 of a second. But if you can keep that acceleration up for 17 hours, you'll be going at 90% the speed of light.
Oh man, which would make, of course, time travel
Which
or
gives you
travel.
interstellar capabilities,
Right.
really, because you're moving at relativistic speed, so time is going to go slower for you. And at that acceleration, you can get across the galaxy in about 3 months.
What?
Your time. Across the galaxy, 3 months, traveler's time. Not the
Okay,
time.
okay.
For the people everybody in the galaxy sees it will take about 80,000 years.
Okay.
But for you, the traveler, it'll take about 3 months. It's a 3-month
All right.
trip.